All right, well, thank you for sticking around for the CPDD membership information session. This is a workshop that's being presented in partnership with the Early Career Members Committee and with the Membership Committee. I'm Cecilia Bergaria. I'm currently the chair for the Early Career Member Committee, and I'm a postdoc at the Behavioral Pharmacology Research Unit at Johns Hopkins University. I've been a member with CPDD since 2013, and I'm currently a member in training. Before we get into the content of the slides, I'll just kind of prompt everybody to download a QR code reader app if you haven't done so already and you want easy access to some of the resources. I'll have some QR codes throughout the presentation. And the slides will be posted on the website, but feel free to just capture the screens throughout the presentation. All right, so just to give you an overview of the content that we'll be covering today, there are really two sections. We'll be discussing the benefits of CPDD membership, an overview of CPDD, what makes it special, what makes membership special. The second portion will be about the application process. So the nuts and the bolts and the requirements for getting an application in. Throughout the presentation, we'll have some input from some members of the membership committee. So Dr. Eric Strain, Dr. Shane Perrine will be able to provide some perspective about how CPDD has benefited their career as both preclinical and clinical researchers. And Dr. Kyle Kampman will also provide information about how applications are reviewed. And then finally, we'll have an open floor for some questions so that we can address any outstanding items we don't cover in this presentation. So as a broad overview, CPDD is the longest standing group in the US that addresses public health issues related to drug dependence and abuse. In the 1980s, CPDD became a membership organization, and this means that memberships took a more active role in the direction and the governance of the college. And therefore, membership is not just simply paying membership dues and attending the conference within this organization. Members can join committees, they can help shape CPDD initiatives, and because CPDD is so long-standing and interacts with governmental and industry and academic communities, it really has a great reach in influencing addiction science research and policy in the US and internationally. The main way, but not the only way that a lot of these relationships are developed are through the annual scientific meeting. This is where, of course, a lot of the science is exchanged. And then finally, CPDD sponsors the journal Drug and Alcohol Dependence. So when I think about CPDD and my experiences with the college, it really has been vital in connecting me with collaborators and mentors, and has also provided me with a wealth of resources and opportunities that have enriched my career as an addiction scientist. So I'm going to talk about mostly the tangible benefits associated with membership, but I know that Dr. Perrine and Dr. Strain will be able to talk maybe a little bit more about the intangible benefits. So I'm just going to say that there are a lot of networking resources that you get when you become a CPDD member. You get access to listservs, you can join committees, you're able to receive a weekly email about job openings in careers in addiction science. And you also get the opportunity to get involved with a lot of community outreach. You also get access to drug and alcohol dependence. You get access to the restricted CPDD website. You can sponsor your own abstract at the annual meeting and submit a late breaking abstract. And you also get a discounted conference fee. So this is just a screen capture from the website representing the registration fees from this virtual meeting. But if you attend the in-person conference or if you attend the virtual conference, it's always cheaper as a member, even after you've paid your membership dues. So you can get the benefit of both attending the conference and all the benefits of becoming a member for the same price effectively. There are 4 different membership levels. Members in training are typically post-bac students that are in some sort of training graduate program or medical resident, or they're postdoctoral trainees. Associate level members are typically junior to mid-career level investigators. They've had significant contributions to the field in CPDD, prior attendance at the meeting, and they hold a terminal degree. Regular members are distinguished from associate in that they typically have a little bit more contributions to the field than the associate member. And then finally, fellows are longstanding members of the CPDD community who have made exceptional contributions to their field in CPDD. There are a couple other notes about membership levels. The first is that in order to maintain the member in training status, you must have an advisor or somebody within your graduate program or training program confirm your status as a student or trainee each year. And the second other important note about membership levels is that although often publications are sort of the metric used to determine how you go through the different stages and levels of membership, they're certainly considered in a context of achievement. Dr. Campman will definitely be fleshing this out a little bit more, though, however, in the during the application portion of this presentation. So why have different membership levels? Well, with each membership level, you have a different number of benefits. So there are basic benefits, which I outlined on the previous slide. And those are benefits that the members in training receive. However, as you rise to the next level of membership, you get additional benefits. So as an associate member, you're able to vote at the annual business meeting, you can nominate members for the nominating committee, and you can run for office. And then as a regular member, you get the additional benefit of being able to sponsor other people's abstracts, which may be important if you have growing trainees or mentees that you'd like to attend the conference. So those are the very precise and tangible benefits, but certainly in terms of how CPDD can influence your career, there are many others. Built into this presentation, I have 2 members of the membership committee, Dr. Eric Strain and Dr. Shane Perrine, to discuss about their experiences with CPDD and how it has benefited their career. So I guess since he's first on the slide, Dr. Eric Strain, I'd like to pass the mic over to you if you'd like to say a few words about membership, since you've been a member since 1995.
I won't say a whole lot. I think most of what I will say is stuff that you've heard already or you probably know about, but I'll be glad to elaborate during the Q&A if people want to. I think beyond the tangible aspects, what for me became apparent very early on was that I needed to find a scientific home that was beyond my local institution. And for me, CPDD achieved that, where I started to make networking with other people in the field. At a personal level, because CPDD was running typically during Father's Day, it turned out that after the first year, my wife and then our children, when they were young, would come along. And there were other members, Craig Rush, Al Budney, Sharon Walsh, who were all sort of in the same boat. And so, we not only had interactions at a professional level, but we were also having interactions at a personal level, which really made it very friendly and sort of reinforced coming back. And but it wasn't simply that. I think it was also um, that the level of discourse intellectually at the meeting really was stimulating to me. And I found people were interested in what I was doing, and I was interested in what they were doing. And, that sort of built on itself, where connections that I made started to get reinforced over the years. I remember the first few years I would introduce myself to people, older people in the college, more established people. And the next year I'd have to introduce myself again. And the next year I'd have to introduce myself again. But I wore them down. After about 4 or 5 years, senior people started to remember who I was. And, and then I think that helped as well in sort of my networking and career development and establishing relationships, colleagues and collaborators outside of my home institution. So I'll stop there and maybe pass the mic to Shane.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate Cecilia, you putting this together. I know for those of you that are here, thanks for being here. We Cecilia fully intended to have beverages and snacks and make this really more intimate. So I brought along my Diet Pepsi. So cheers to you, Cecilia, for putting this together. And thanks. It's I think one of the great things about CPDD really is the networking. And Eric hit it perfect, nail on the head when he said, really within your own science. I go to the Society for Neuroscience, and I certainly try to interact with, in Michigan, locally. I'm at Wayne State, but also my colleagues at University of Michigan, Michigan State, and all of us do that. But it's really coming together with people that are like-minded in terms of this goal of advancing research related to addiction. That is the excitement, of what CPDD is, and not having that this year at the annual meetings, frustrating to all of us. But rest assured, I don't think this is typical, and hopefully next year we'll be in Quebec back together. So, what has CPDD meant to me? I started as a postdoc. I was at Temple University, actually, where the main offices were for quite some time. So I really got a lot of behind the scenes kind of information, or knowing what was going on in that terms, which was kind of cool. But at the meeting, as a postdoc, I would be like, "Oh, there's Billy Martin." You're watching the big names in the field go by, and being able to actually interact with them, because the virtual meeting this year is well represented in terms of how the meeting is structured, in terms of having a poster session that's intimate enough to where we can all come together. Generally, we have lunch or breakfast at that poster session, which gives us time to talk and stuff a little bit more. And then the sessions are really set up to bring together the different components of what CPDD is. The basic scientists, the preclinical researchers like me, but also those researchers that are doing the human imaging and the epidemiology research that us preclinical researchers are obviously trying to better understand and bring into our translational research. So like today, I saw some really cool work on kappa opioid receptors and antibodies for kappa opioid receptor, or not kappa opioid, for fentanyl. It was really cool work. So I think getting to see that kind of work is something special, but also then getting to see some of the human work that frankly, I just don't get a time to see very much. Getting to interact with MDs like Eric, that are really there on the front line of treating substance abuse. My academic grandma, if you will, Mary Jean Creek, told me to go to a clinic sometime and see what it's like at a methadone clinic. And I did. And that meant the world of difference. So, as a preclinical researcher, having this group of colleagues, that I can interact with is meaningful, right? In that way. It also has been very meaningful as I matriculated through my career. So fortunately, I was able to get tenure in 2019 and promoted to associate professor. And sure enough, when I recommended the people that should be my reviewers, through the process, I went to my colleagues at CPDD. Who do I know at CPDD? Who knows me? Who knows my research? Who knows me just as a person? Because like Eric was saying, it's more than just the science. You get to interact with those individuals. So it really helped in that intangible of having colleagues that I knew I could count on to speak well about me and that knew my research because they came to my posters. So that was awesome, or it has been really awesome. I think Cecilia said it very well in that CPDD gives members an opportunity to be a part of the college and to shape the college. First committee I was on was the Animal Research Committee, which was perfect as a preclinical researcher, but it got me even to understand what being a committee member was, and then how to use that to advance my career into tenure, but also then to really contribute to the way that we want the society or the college to be, rather. So now that I'm on the membership committee, and the membership committee is kind of going through some changes where we've combined previously with the old membership committee, which I chaired, and then the old credentials committee, which Kyle chaired, is now the new membership committee. So we're kind of reforming that, but same mission in terms of promoting membership to CPDD, engaging members, retaining members, and then also reviewing applications. So now, being the chair of that committee gave me, that ability at my own institute to say I'm advancing my career and being involved in a nationally recognized society or college. And then, like I said, now I'm getting to interact with, the editor for DAD on a regular basis. So that's really nice. So having, to be able to interact with Eric and more senior colleagues, Linda Perino and others in the field that I've been able to interact with has been awesome. So it's been very rewarding, and I continue to be involved in the society, and I hope it continues to grow.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Hopefully that really fleshes out what CPDD has to offer. And so with that, we will move on to the second section. Oops. To start outlining a little bit more about the details about the application process so that you can join our awesome squad. So what do you need to apply? So depending on the membership level that you're applying for, you'll need different quantities of certain materials, but the general items that you'll need to apply include an up-to-date CV, sponsor letter or letters, and a statement of commitment, which is a brief statement about your role in addiction science and where you see yourself going. There are some other items that are specific to the different level of membership levels, and those include for members in training, you'll need proof that you are in a training program. For associate and regular members, you will also need representative reprints of original work. And then for fellows, you will need a letter of interest. This grid breaks down the number of items that you need. Like I mentioned, CV is required at all stages. The number of sponsor letters increases. Something important to note, which is a recent change, is that if you're applying to be a regular member and you're currently an associate member, you do not need 2 new additional letters of from sponsors. However, if you are applying to be a regular member, say maybe from a members in training, or maybe you're not a member at all, you will need 2 sponsor letters. Let's see. Also, as I mentioned before, you'll need examples of manuscripts submitted for the associate and the regular level of membership. And all of this is available on the website. I'll point out the links at the end of the presentation. So in terms of membership sponsors, for members in training, typically the person who will be your sponsor would be like an advisor or somebody in your program that attends CPDD that's already a member. For associate and regular membership levels, sponsors are more likely to be colleagues that you meet along the way through CPDD, people that you collaborate with, submit grants with. However, it came to at least my attention last annual meeting when we were in San Antonio, that sometimes early career researchers who are not necessarily part of T32s or, very like, or they don't have an advisor who already goes to CPDD, they might struggle to find an initial membership sponsor. So just this year, we've created a portal where people can request a member sponsor if they don't have a direct current relationship with a CPDD member. So you can access this page through the CPDD website, and you just have to submit 250 words about your current role in addiction science and area of study. And you also have to upload a CV. And then we'll be able to match you with somebody who would be willing to sponsor your membership. So a couple details about when to apply. For members in training, the good news is that applications are reviewed all year long and once per month. However, if you would like to receive discounted registration fee, your application has to be received by March 1st. For all other members, the applications are reviewed the second Friday in September and the second Friday in January. All of the application process is online. There's a very user-friendly portal you can access through this link, or you can access with this QR code. And then another part of applying and becoming a member is paying your membership dues, which are annual dues. And as I mentioned before, this is often offset by the conference registration fees, but it's $50 for members in training each year and $200 for the higher level membership levels. Okay, so for our final component that we would like to present to you is a little bit of insight into how these applications are reviewed. We have insights from Dr. Kyle Campman, who's a current professor of psychiatry at the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania. And Dr. Campman has been a member since 1998. So I will pass the mic on to you and mute myself. So.
All right, cool. All right, so I'm Kyle Campman. I am chair of what was called the Credentials Committee in the past. It is now the Credentials Subcommittee of the Membership Committee. I took it over from Jim Anthony, who taught me a lot about credentials. Anyway, since I took over, obviously there have been changes, the merger of the Credentials Committee I just talked about. However, although we have merged with membership, the process of credentialing members really hasn't changed a whole lot. The former Credentials Committee serves as a subcommittee, and the process goes on much as it did before, and the criteria for membership really haven't changed. So next slide. So again, so who reviews your application? First, let me tell you who these people are. There's 7 people on the Credentials Subcommittee. Edward Butelman, Jan Copeland, August Hutlin, me, Lynn Oswald, Judith Sy, and George Woody. Next slide. Okay, so here's what happens to your application once you submit it. Cecilia's already described what should be in your application packet and when you need to submit it. So once you've submitted it, then it goes to the committee. Twice a year, once in September and again in January, the committee receives applications for associate and regular membership, and they're reviewed by all 7 members of the committee. There's no in-person committee meetings, there's no smoke-filled rooms. Rather, the committee members review the applications. We discuss electronically or over the phone if we need to, and ultimately we vote. And it's a majority rule. We submit the results of our review to the board of directors, who then make the decisions on membership. Applications for members in training are reviewed monthly by me. That's how that goes. Next slide. Okay, so what are we looking for? For associate membership, the membership guidelines, which are written on the website, state that candidates shall have made a significant or have made significant contributions in a basic science, clinical research, or other scholarly field relevant to problems of drug dependence. For example, 2 first author publications in a peer-reviewed basic science, clinical research, or other scholarly journals that are related to the problems of drug dependence may be used to fulfill this criteria. That's, again, that is a recommendation. That's not hard and fast. You need to have attended at least 1 CPDD meeting, and generally you need to hold a terminal degree appropriate to your academic discipline, although unusually qualified persons who do not hold the terminal degree may be considered for this level of membership, associate. All right, next. For regular membership, the criteria are a little bit more rigorous. The candidate shall have a meritorious record of publication in a basic science, clinical, or other scholarly field related to problems of drug dependence. And examples of this criteria include at least 10 first author or senior author papers in peer-reviewed basic science, clinical research, or other scholarly journals appropriate to the candidate's field of interest, or first authored basic science, clinical research, or other scholarly books or monographs. You still need to have attended at least 1 meeting, and there are special circumstances. In special circumstances, the Credentials Committee may consider potential candidates who do not work in basic science, clinical research, or related scholarly fields. Examples would be those who have made clearly compelling commitments and contributions to research, education, or public service in problems of drug dependence, or persons whose community leadership or philanthropy contributed in an important way to alleviating problems of drug dependence. All right, next. All right, so what if you don't have the right number of publications? Is there a right number of publications? Well, as Jim Anthony made very clear to me when I first started on the committee, the Credentials Committee members are not just a bunch of bean counters. The committee is instructed to be flexible in these matters without losing rigor in the evaluation of credentials. And alternative credentials are specified in our guidelines as substitute for peer-reviewed articles. And here's how it's spelled out specifically in the guidelines. While scientific authorship in peer-reviewed journals may be the most common means for judging suitability for membership, the college recognizes that other mechanisms can also indicate significant scientific contributions to the field. For example, efforts within the government, publications of reports, advocacy for addictions research. Thus, this criterion will be applied with reasonable judgment by the Credentials Committee, recognizing that not all papers or books represent equal contributions and that authorship is not the sole indicator of scholarship. Either more or fewer publications may be required to meet this criterion. Okay, nuts and bolts time. So what are the problems that hold up credentialing? Well, maybe 3 years ago when I first started, we learned to be a little bit more flexible in applying the criteria. That problem is pretty well squared away right now. Our biggest problem is administrative stuff, getting complete applications. That is the bane of my existence so far as the chair of the Credentials Subcommittee. And actually, it's not generally the applicant's fault. It's missing letters, missing nominating letters that have held up the process last year. But I think we've got a handle on that. We have a new system to hopefully get the nominating letters together with the application package before it goes to the committee. So, all right, that's all I've got for you.
Thank you, Dr. Campman. So I guess at this point we're just interested in opening up the floor. We hope that we've addressed a lot of concerns or questions you may have about membership. I have here on the final slide a screen capture of the main CPDD website. And there is a membership tab that has a lot of links to very helpful resources. If you need to get into more of the details or need to know more about the specific criteria for your statement of interest, for example. But yeah, with that, I think we'll just open it up for any questions.
Okay, I'll throw out a question real quick back to Kyle. If you don't mind, Kyle, would you mind to just briefly go over what it takes to be a fellow for for us regular members that might want to be up in the ranks of you and Eric one day?
I'm going to tell you the truth. I have never credentialed a fellow yet. No one
Okay.
has asked me to do that. So when it comes time to it, I'm going to go back to the website and look at the guidelines and use my good judgment.
Fair enough. But it doesn't, I mean, Eric, you might be able to weigh in on this. I don't think necessarily being a fellow is all about the publications either. It's really being a leader in the field, because I think there's a number of fairly, I don't know, younger. I don't want to say that let me take my foot out of my mouth. Hang on real quick. Bill Stoops is a younger gentleman, and I think he's is a fellow, if I'm not wrong. So perhaps you can weigh in on that, Eric, before I say anything more stupid.
Yeah, so actually, I was chair of the credentials committee when we developed the criteria for fellows. And the reason we did it in part was previously the only people who became fellows were Eddie awardees and former members of the board of directors. And we realized that there were some people who were members of the college who had been faithful members for years, really didn't want to be on the board of directors. And you know, it would just clog it up. It would be an unreasonable thing to put somebody on the board for years just so that they could become a fellow. But we wanted to indicate in some way that they had achieved a certain level of, you know, success in the field. But I think you're right, Shane. I don't think there was never an intention for that to be something where, you know, you had to be a member of the college for 20 years or something like that. I think somebody who's who can be relatively young in the college and young in the field, but has made substantial contributions. I believe there were 4 letters required when you nominate somebody for fellow.
That's right.
But is it still the case that 2 of the letters have to be from fellows?
That's right. That's still the case.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the one sort of twist to it. But yeah, I mean, I don't see why we shouldn't be bringing more people in and getting them to be fellows. It doesn't sound to me like Kyle has enough to do, so I think it would be good to push the envelope there.
There is a question from Katie Marks. Would the committee prefer that individuals go from members in training to associate to regular, or is it okay to apply as a member in training for regular if one meets the eligibility requirements?
Go for the highest thing that you can qualify for. So yeah, there's no rule that you have to go stepwise. Sure, if you meet criteria to be a regular member, go for it.
Yeah, why not? I agree. I mean, because someone may just kind of through the process. Frankly, it took me a while to apply for the next level. I was just busy writing grants and trying to move that along, but I cranked out enough papers to meet those criteria. So I agree. Well, go for the highest you can go for. I mean, I'm now looking at the fellows. Although apparently Elise tells me to be a fellow, you have to be a past CPDD officer, I see. So
I didn't know that.
So, hey, one thing I can chime in, I didn't say a little bit earlier. I saw you had I'm really glad that the college has created that link to find potential members, sponsors that are part of the college. Yeah. One of the things that Kyle and I can do, and I think having that link is frankly a little bit better, but as the co-chairs of the new membership committee, at least to me, as far as the subcommittee, the membership subcommittee, I can review credentials independently and give an independent recommendation based on the credentials that you as the applicant would submit. I've done that a number of times. I look through papers that the individuals submitted. I read their letters and whatnot, and just provide an independent assessment, and that qualifies as a sponsored letter too. And I'm sure that we can still do that. But having that link is really cool because then it pairs you up with someone that probably knows that area better. I mean, a couple of times I wrote, letters for areas of within addiction that I knew little about, frankly. But you could tell certainly that they were qualified or not to be a member of the college.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, frankly, the college is more inclusive than exclusive. I mean, Kyle could say that, but I think that's what he was getting at in terms of it's not a bean counting organization. We want members and we want to expand. But we want to hold up the rigor and the quality of our members to be those individuals that are truly interested in advancing addiction science and not just somebody that's trying to get a grant from NIDA by putting in the word opioid in their, But hey, those men all are welcome, in my opinion.
Can I ask? Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, Shane, that we are trying to maintain some standard. I remember I joined another professional organization a year or two after I joined CPDD. And having gone through the efforts with CPDD, I thought, okay, I'm going to have to, put something together. And the only requirement they had was that I write a check for the dues. That was it. As long as the check cleared, I was a member. But I have a question back to Kyle, not to put Kyle on the hot seat, but Kyle, can you give a sense of like the proportion of people who apply to be a member in training? How many are turned down? How many who are applying to be an associate member or a regular member? What's that look like in terms of the proportions that are? What's that?
So, again, I have yet to turn down a member in training. I think all the applications that I've seen met full criteria. All right. So what happens more often than not is people apply for regular membership and don't necessarily qualify for that. And so they sort of get encouraged to apply for associate membership instead. So we do have a number of those. And I don't think I've, so far in my year as chair, we haven't absolutely refused anybody. We put applications down a level, but I have not had to turn down anyone yet.
It's good to know.
Nice. And what if somebody's like got 6 or 7 pubs, but they're, all peer reviewed and, maybe they've come to a couple of meetings. What do you recommend they do at that point as far as membership level?
All right. So again, we're not bean counters. So just because they don't have 10 papers doesn't mean that you can't necessarily be a regular member. If you have other qualifications that would act instead of peer-reviewed papers, then you could very well be a regular member. If you look at an application like that and they don't have those, then you ask, you suggest they apply for associate membership. But again, you try to be reasonable. It's not, again, we're not counting peer-reviewed papers, first and last author. There are lots of other ways to be scholarly.
We've demystified everything.
You've been very well organized, Cecilia.
Thank you. Well, if you do have any other questions, let's see here. I think the right way to, I think I have it on my final slide. info@cpdd.org, right, is the correct way to reach out and get directed to the right people. But also on the website, underneath the membership tab, there are contacts as well for you to get into contact with people. Oh, wait. So Elise wanted clarification about when membership applications are reviewed. So let's see here. We have a slide.
Shouldn't the president of the college know that?
We can share the slide.
Yeah, second Friday and second, yeah.
So depending on what level you're applying for, there's 2 times during the year for associate, regular, and fellow. Member in training is it's somewhat open. It's reviewed once a month. But certainly there's the initiative to get your applications in by March 1st so you get the discounted registration fee.
Very important.
Hey, Cecilia, or maybe Kyle, can you remind us real quick too, when those letters are submitted, it's been a while since I've done it, are those are submitted directly by the letter writer to the website? Is that one of the slow processes, Kyle? Obviously,
Yeah, the applicants rarely know that their letters of nomination haven't been received.
Yeah.
So I have to check out letter writers. That's
like in all cases, don't hesitate to contact your letter writers to let them know you need that in by a certain date, or you'll miss out. But that's through the application process, and then that gets an email sent to the letter writer, and then they respond directly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, and let me just make sure that I didn't skip any. Nope. Well, if there are no other questions, thank you for joining. Hopefully this clarified some questions for you, and hopefully you consider applying for CPDD for the first time or for the next level, because I think everybody would agree that we'd be happy to have you. So everybody have a good night, and thank you for joining again.